Hey guys, what's going on? This is Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with me on this presentation. This is a great time of year where there's a lot of holiday cheer, but it's also winter time. And I figured that making a presentation on how to prepare your immune system for the winter would be appropriate. So this is an action-packed presentation. There's a lot of good information, and I'm also going to be giving some practical tips towards the end. You don't want to miss it. And definitely take notes. So like I said, it's very action-packed, and you want to wait until the end because we also have a few great announcements. Ready? All right, so let's get started. All right, so the title of my presentation is How to Prepare Your Immune System for the Winter. And what we're going to go over is a little bit of introduction of myself or reintroduction. And we're also going to be going through the respiratory system, infections, immune system, and then also practical steps, as well as a couple of great announcements. So you don't want to miss it and you want to stay towards the end. So a little bit about me, if you are new to this, new to the channel, is I'm originally from New Jersey. I'm a first-generation immigrant child, and I'm also double-boarded in family and lifestyle medicine. I pretty much grew up with a mother who practices traditional Chinese medicine. So my world has always been preventative, holistic in nature. And I went into school with that kind of perspective. And what the school didn't teach me and training didn't teach me in the conventional medical world was that very ill prepared in terms of diet, lifestyle, self-care, nutrition, and things like that. So I made a lot of detours. I went to culinary school. I got certified in health coaching, and I wanted to reinforce and bridge the gap of the interconnection between individual health, community health, and also planetary health now. Because more and more we are realizing for many, many years, actually, that your own individual actions has a ripple effect to everywhere else. And because of that, I also founded TheChefDoc in 2017. So the respiratory system. And the reason why I start, even though we're talking about the immune system, and, I would be remiss if I wasn't talking about the respiratory system, because in the wintertime, we're going to be facing colder weather, right? Drier climates in an environment, and, viruses, cold viruses, flu viruses, COVID viruses are all around us, right? So we have to be able to understand what our respiratory system does. What it provides for us, and what do we need to do to best optimize it. So just a little bit of background, lung disease in general, it's the sixth leading cause of death in the United States, with lung cancer being the number one cancer killer, number one in terms of cancer deaths, more so than if you actually combined breast, colon, and pancreatic cancer. Lung disease comprises of COPD, emphysema, and also asthma, which are the heavy hitters in America. I would say the biggest takeaway, from the get-go is to stop smoking. If you or a loved one or someone that is smoking, and also you are also being subjected to secondhand smoke, there's a lot of issues with this, right? So smoking in general houses and contains a lot of carcinogenic, properties and components, right? And it also prevents your actual lung function and your lung ability to fight off infections, be able to clear a lot of toxins out, and just inhibits your natural ability, your first line defense, right? And if you are a non-smoker, you actually have a 20 to 30% higher chance of developing cancer if you're actually regularly exposed to cigarette smoke. But if you actually quit smoking, the reverse effects are actually pretty astounding. So as per the American Cancer Society, if you quit just for 20 minutes, your heart rate and your blood pressure drops. If you quit for a few weeks, your blood circulation and lung function actually improves. And if you actually quit for a few months, we have cells called sweeper cells. They help clean the lungs, removes mucuses, and actually reduces the infection risks to regrow. And if you quit within a year, your cardiovascular risk becomes 50% of that of current smokers. Okay. And if you actually quit for 15 years, your actual risk would actually be equivalent to non-smokers. And it means a lot, when we are able to model this. And I did not grow up in this time, but back then, it wasn't too long ago that physicians actually promoted smoking. And when I practice lifestyle medicine, which is using evidence-based approaches to prevent, treat, and reverse chronic lifestyle-related diseases, I view lifestyle medicine as also a profession of accountability. And there's nothing that I would tell, educate, or teach my patients and clients that I wouldn't do myself. So, role modeling is very, very important. Okay. And, it wasn't until the first Surgeon General to say that to stop smoking based on the evidence that smoking is bad for you. And up until that time, we've had almost about 6,000 pieces of scientific literature to be able to say this. But, kind of like big meat, big dairy, big pharma, we have a lot of corporate interests, a lot of lobbying power, a lot of deep pockets to be able to fight this, which makes America very, very unique. Tobacco smoke weakens the body's immune system by damaging cell DNA. Right. And we find that cruciferous vegetables, if you're eating just a single stalk a day, of broccoli, actually helps to reduce 41% DNA mutations in your bloodstream in just 10 days. When you're diagnosed with lung cancer, 85% of women die within 5 years. And we find that compounds in broccoli may have potential to be able to suppress metastasis. Turmeric is a Indian spice, and the National Cancer Institute since 1987 has tested more than 1,000 different compounds for chemo prevention. Most promising is curcumin. That really, really bright, catches in your eye, bright yellow pigment found within turmeric. Okay, it prevents some DNA damage caused by smoking. It prevents and or arrests cancer cell growth as well. And it's something that you actually just find in your grocery store. I find turmeric a lot in ethnic, markets. I find in a lot of Asian markets, Indian markets, things like that. And just a less than teaspoon a day can actually help you with this. And also for reasons unknown, it also leaves non-cancerous cells alone. Now, going back to the secondhand smoke, like I said, majority of lung cancer cases are attributed to smoking, but actually about 25% are due to secondhand smoking. One of the contributions is due to fumes from frying. Okay, so when fat is heated at frying temperatures, whether it's animal or plant fat, what we get is toxic volatile chemicals, and this has mutagenic properties that are released into the air. For example, we've had a study that shows that it matters what you're actually frying. So let's just say, for example, you're stir frying meat, right? There's a study in China that there's a 3x odds of developing lung cancer with smoking, with smokers who actually stir fry meat on a daily basis. And doesn't matter what you're, stir frying or frying. It actually does matter. They've done a study with frying tempeh versus bacon, and the tempeh yielded actually fewer DNA mutations. So all that to say is that in terms of cooking techniques, frying is not the most healthy. And if you have to grill, barbecue, or fry, it's better to do this outdoors where there's actually, more air ventilation. And if you're doing this indoors, which is more preferable, make sure you have your fan exhaust on, okay? And we'll talk about general tips towards the end. COPD. How many of you guys have a loved one or you're battling with COPD by yourself? COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and it comprises of bronchitis and also emphysema. It's characterized by having shortness of breath, coughing, excess mucus production, wheezing, and chest tightness. And it affects more than about 16 million Americans back in 2018. That number is probably higher now. And smoking is the leading cause of COPD, but also prolonged exposure to air pollution. If you live in a metropolitan area, if you commute to the city on a daily basis, this is something that you have to note. Okay, with the increasing advent of climate change, greenhouse gases, car exhaust from your own car, if you're running a gas-powered vehicle, or you're surrounded by other vehicles, these are things that you have to pay attention to. We have data going back to 50 years showing that if you actually increase your intake of fruits and vegetables, it's actually positively associated with good lung function. Just one extra serving of fruit each day translates into 24% lower risk of dying from COPD. Now, what if you already have COPD? A study in 2010 shows that increasing the servings of fruits and vegetables improves that. And actually, we think that it's due to the anti-inflammatory nature of fruits and vegetables, as well as the antioxidant effects of it as well. But it could also be attributed to a reduction of meat consumption. I've had one time where I was on the training grounds. I was working in the hospital, working in the intensive care unit in the ICU. And we had one patient where their face was totally mutilated due to the fact that they were smoking next to their oxygen tank. And so addictive properties and addiction in general is very, very powerful. So we understand that it's a very hard thing to fight, but it's very important that you be able at all costs reduce this for yourself. So again, stop smoking and encourage others to stop smoking as well, so you're not subjugated to secondhand smoke. Asthma. How many have asthma or know of someone that battles with asthma? I get a lot of patients with asthma through my urgent care practice. And it's an inflammatory disease characterized by recurring attacks of having narrowed and swollen airways, causing shortness of breath, wheezing, and coughing. In the US, asthma can start at any age, but emerges during childhood and affects 25 million people, some of which are children. We've done a study, international study of asthma and allergies in childhood, and it follows more than 1 million children in nearly 100 countries. And what we found in terms of food is that when you have adolescents living in areas where there's more starchy vegetables, grains, vegetables, and nuts, starchy foods, grains, and vegetables and nuts, they've exhibited chronic symptoms of wheezing, allergic rhinoconjunctivitis, and allergic eczema. That's actually supposed to say exhibited lower chronic symptoms. We also noticed that there's lower respiratory and asthma symptoms, and that's among populations eating more plants of plant origin. We also found that researchers in Australia, there is worser lung function with just one serving of fruits and vegetables. And when they actually increased this to 7 servings, they're able to cut half of their asthma exacerbation risk in half with 7 servings. So the recommended servings, as a reminder, is 5 to 9 servings. 97% of Americans are deficient in fiber. And so not only, like we're talking about, reducing respiratory symptoms, but it also has this multiplicative effect about, having other beneficial effects on our body as well. Now, we're going to switch gears to infections. And, infections is a very large topic, but we also want to emphasize that it matters in terms of where the food source is. Nearly 3/4 of all emerging and re-emerging human diseases arise from the animal kingdom. So, for example, tuberculosis we think that it's, coming from the domestication of goats way back when. Measles and smallpox, mutated cattle virus, whooping cough, we've domesticated pigs. Typhoid fever, due to domesticated chickens, influenza from domesticated ducks, cold virus from domesticated horses, and HIV from butchering primates in Africa for the bush meat trade. And then now we have COVID. What's also important is understanding about, the immune system, right? So, for example, HIV leads into AIDS, right? And when you are having the AIDS disease, you have a lot of opportunistic infections. And what I mean by this is, things like bacterial, viral, and fungal infections that normally do not affect us because we have a intact, strong immune system. And when that immune system is compromised, for example, in patients with AIDS, then these infections that normally do not affect us become more opportunistic. So what that means is that the immune system goes down because it's compromised, and these infections attack us, right? Another example would be, you may already have latent infections. So for example, infections that are just brewing and just waiting to come out when the immune system dips, right? So how many of you guys have had chicken pox, as a child? I definitely had. And so when you have the reactivation of chicken pox, it becomes shingles, right? How many of you guys have had shingles for yourself? So for shingles, it's a reactivation whenever the immune system has dropped, right? So this is just an example that you may have latent infections that are just brewing and you may not know it. 60 to 80% sanitation, we recommend that it's alcohol-based. So it's sufficient if you have sanitizers that are 60 to 80%. This helps with hygiene, right? The only times that we encourage hand washing is when you're actually having bodily fluids. So hand washing helps with that. And, whenever you're touching doorknobs, shaking hands, touching handles, doors, moving about through the airport, definitely use 60 to 80% of alcohol-based sanitation. So this is just a reminder of the latest causes of death, right? Heart disease and cancer are top two killers, right? COVID is newer since the pandemic. It becomes our third. And then like we just talked about, lower respiratory disease is our sixth leading cause. And I also want to remind you that whenever you have these medical conditions, it increases the risk for COVID. Asthma, cancer, chronic kidney and liver disease, diabetes, heart conditions, having a body mass index greater than 30, and smoking, right? So these are all linked with each other, right? They're not independent, siloed conditions. They are all interrelated. And as you guys are more plant-based or vegan or thinking about, going towards more plant-forward, diet and lifestyle, you're going to be able to attack most of these things, right? So that's the beautiful thing about that, as well as, exercising the 6 pillars of health, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. And as a reminder, nothing kills Americans more than heart disease and stroke. And when you combine those two together, it claims about 900,000 Americans, every single year. Okay, so the immune system, right? This is what you guys are here for. This is a very large subject, and I very, specifically narrowed down to things that are related to food, but it's a very large subject, okay? So what is it comprised of? It's comprised of various organs. For example, white blood cells, for example, proteins that are we have called antibodies, which are our defense system, right? We also have a lymphatic system. And I'm going to teach you something towards the end of the presentation in terms of how to continue to move that. And then also the skin. How many of you guys knew that the skin is your largest organ in your body? Okay. It's our first line defense because it's our, first layer with the external world. All right. So the immune system is comprised of white blood cells. Neutrophils are one of them. You have your B cells, which we have memory cells. B cells help to create antibodies for every single foreign, we call antigens that enter or come in contact with our body. Okay, they're able to create an antibody for every single thing. So it's a very meticulous system. T cells, natural killer cells, these are kind of like our Army and Marine system. Okay, they go out, they are very targeted and they shoot to kill. And these are very effective in terms of cancer cells. These are very effective in terms of viruses, for example. So the question is, as you get older, your immune system declines, right? But does it make a difference with adequate nutrition? We'll come back to this question in a bit. So preserving your immune system. Infectious disease, okay, we're going to use infectious disease as the context, to be able to answer this. Infectious disease represent the fourth leading cause of death in elderly, and they suffer 3 times more the mortality rate of acute infections compared to younger adults. This is exacerbated by a poor response to vaccination. And for example, with COVID-19, this is a good example that, as we age, there's something that happens as we age where we, produce more pro-inflammatory effects. And then also our immune system also declines as well. So combining those together, you have something called a perfect storm. So in this case, for example, COVID-19, it was a cytokine storm, right? Combination of decreasing immune function and a hyper-inflammatory reaction. And if you remember, from that medical condition list that increases the higher likelihood of getting COVID, that contributes to this cytokine storm. But we also know that there's several different things beyond food, for example, lifestyle, that helps. So for example, weight loss. Obesity weighs down the efficacy of vaccination. So if you just vaccinated and you carry extra weight, the extra weight actually decreases the effectiveness of that vaccination. So for example, if you're over 50, we recommend getting a shingle shot. If you're over 65, we recommend getting a pneumonia shot. So having the extra weight actually decreases, right, the efficacy, right? If you're getting your seasonal flu shots. Having extra weight, obesity, impairs the function of natural killer cells. As a reminder, there are Marines. They're the shoot to kill type of cells. Exercise reduces the number of sick days by 25 to 50%, okay? And for example, in the wintertime, we encourage, to keep moving, right? Not to continue having a sedentary lifestyle, but at the same time, when you're actually over-exercising, like for example, marathons and ultra marathons, that actually taxes the immune system and actually is worse. So there's an extreme portion of this, right? So I lead local chapters of Walk with the Doc, right? How many of you guys participate in a Walk with the Doc chapter? And, walking is a great way of continuing your physical activity without taxing yourself, right? Forest bathing. Forest bathing is being out in nature, being surrounded by what Mother Nature has given us, right? A lot of greenery. It boosts natural killer cells via natural compounds found in nature. One of them is called phytoncides. Sleep, okay? How many of you guys get 7 to 8 hours of sleep? It helps to enhance our immune defense and actually has a better vaccine protection. Now, on the opposite side, when you're having sleep deprivation, whether you're going to bed too late or you're getting up too early, it's been shown to actually impair natural killer cell activity. So sleep is very, very important. Now, can food help, right? We find that when you're having lower rates of fruit and vegetable consumption, it actually increases your flu-related hospitalizations by 8%, right? Going back to this question of, when you're getting older, your immune system declines, doesn't make a difference with adequate nutrition. Well, We find that when you're eating more than 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, we found in studies that there's an 82% greater antibody response to the pneumonia vaccine. For kiwi fruit, can actually decrease, upper respiratory infection symptoms compared to control. Now, elderberry is interesting. We find that the supplements in elderberry are not safe. There's a whole aisle whenever you go into markets, there's elderberry this, elderberry that. There's been a case report of acute pancreatitis. Okay, that's an inflammatory change. And if you're eating just the raw form, it actually forms cyanide, which can give you a lot of GI distress. So I would definitely caution you in terms of, elderberry supplements. We find that interventional studies, when we're looking at blueberries, it's been shown that to increase the number of natural killer cells. The aromatic spice of cardamom, right? So for example, if you drink chai, not chai tea, that's redundant. Chai is tea translated. If you're drinking chai, cardamom's used, right? And it actually increases the natural killer cell activity. Black raspberries appears to do both. Goji berries, powdered, okay, and studies shown to actually have real world effects. When you're eating 4 teaspoons compared to placebo, we find that there's a greater antibody response after receiving the flu shot, and there's a greater antibody response by day 60 and by day 90. Very interesting stuff. Vegetables, going back to broccoli. It boosts natural killer cells, and other cruciferous vegetables are critical for intestinal immune function. Remember that 70% of your immune system lives within your gut, right? And when you're, ingesting your gut, how are they exposed, to everything? Because you're ingesting it, right? When you're breathing in, you're breathing in thousands upon thousands of microorganisms. But when you're eating, you're ingesting millions upon millions of other microorganisms as well. We find that in a randomized study, broccoli sprouts eaten on the day before and on the day of infection reduces the viral load as well as virus-induced inflammation. Wakame, which can be found in seaweed salad, can actually 2x or 4 times the replication potential of T cells. Remember, T cells are kind of like our Army and Marine system of our immune system defense. Soy foods can boost antibody-producing B cells, right? And nori sheets can increase natural killer cells. That was studied at 7 sheets of nori a day. We don't know for now, less than that, does it still do that? But nori sheets are found when, you're making sushi. Garlic. How many of you guys like garlic? Garlic during World War II was called the Russian penicillin when antibiotics ran out. It works by suppressing, that's supposed to say suppressing. It works by suppressing inflammation and boosting natural killer cells. And we find that different preparations yields different percentages of the active compounds. The best is actually ingesting it raw. Whenever I make a smoothie, I use raw cloves of garlic, okay? Raw is best. The next is roasting. And the next is boiling, simmering, and stir frying. So even if you stir fry at just a minute, it actually, kills off all the active, compounds, okay? Roasting, interestingly enough, is higher temperature than boiling, but it actually keeps the compounds more than boiling. Mushrooms. How many of you guys like mushrooms? So cooked white button increases IgA production. IgA is a type of antibody, and it's found in our mucous membranes, our eyes, nose, lips, okay, mouth. It helps to increase that. Oyster mushrooms, we found that has an anti-allergy effect in children with a history of recurring upper respiratory infections. Shiitake mushrooms, one of my favorites, lowers markers of systemic inflammation. Nutrition, yeast and green tea. So there's a immune activating beta glucan fiber found in brewers, bakers, and nutritional yeast. And we find that, one daily heaping teaspoon reduces the incidence, duration, and severity of upper respiratory infections compared to placebo. In tea, there's components in tea called alkyl amines, and it helps to proliferate and enhances the activity of gamma delta T cells. Tea drinkers have been documented to have lower rates of influenza and half the risk of dying from pneumonia. And how many cups would you say? They went as low as half a cup of green tea a day, which cuts the risk of upper respiratory infections in half. Now, if you've most people on planet Earth either have had COVID or have been vaccinated by now, and they've been able to research this. So in Harvard, they collected data from 600,000 participants who ate the most healthful plant foods and least animal-based foods, and they've realized that they've had significantly lower risk of suffering severe course of COVID-19, but also lower risk of getting it in the first place. Right? This is also another great, reason, right? And if you think about it, it goes back to what we said before. And what they did in this data was even taking into account the comorbidities, right? So other types of medical conditions and other non-dietary risk factors, such as, exercise, smoking, and socioeconomic class. They even take into account into that. So, guys, plants, very, very powerful, which you guys already getting a clue. And as a reminder, these are the medical conditions with higher risk of COVID. They're all interrelated, like we said. Okay, so this is going to be the fun part. For those that have been following me, I do, recipe demos, but this is also a separate demo where I'm going to be utilizing my skill set as a doctor of osteopathic medicine. So osteopathic manipulative treatment, if you ever wonder what the difference between a DO and an MD, and a DO is able to practice and perform surgery, write prescriptions, all that, in all 50 states, just like an MD. But in terms of schooling, we have the ability to, we have 300 extra hours in terms of manual manipulation where we diagnose and treat with our own hands. And that's called osteopathic manipulative treatment. Now, for this lecture, because we're in wintertime, because we're facing a lot of cold viruses and upper respiratory infections, everywhere, I'm going to teach you a self treatment to be able to help you out, right? So if you're battling a cold or an upper respiratory infection, we're going to do something called a facial effleurage as well as a trigeminal stimulation, right? So we're going to do the trigeminal stimulation first. So we basically have three levels, right? So we have, the cranial nerve 5, okay? We have points out of here, and then also points out of here that we could, stimulate and be able to, affect, right? So here, just right here, there's a divot. There's a divot right here, okay? And there's a divot in your cheekbones. And then there's a divot here, okay? Now, when you touch this or rotate this, okay, you're going to find that it's going to hurt a little bit and be very stimulating, okay? And that's okay. What you want to do is you take your finger pads and you rotate here, okay, 30 seconds in one direction, and then 30 seconds in the other direction. And you can kind of do this, along the ridge of your eyebrows, okay? And then from here, you want to move towards your cheekbones, and you're going to have this divot here, and you're going to have the second set of your cranial nerves come out of your cheekbones here, and you want to stimulate this part as well. And then you're going to do this here at the bottom of your chin. And the reason why to do this is you're stimulating the nerves out here, okay, and to increase, okay, the effects of this part of your nervous system. You have your cranial nerves that come out of these sockets, okay, if we actually look at a skull, okay, and it not only stimulates it, but it also enhances movement, right? So we're going to do something called a facial effleurage, okay? Ideally, this is actually for two people with a practitioner behind you and you're laying on the treatment table, but you can do this as well, okay? So going back to the lymphatic system, like I said before, the lymphatic system is parallel to your blood circulation system. It helps to carry out waste and toxins, okay, out of your body, okay? And we have something here called the thoracic duct, okay? And it's kind of like, it's kind of like the trash being taken out during trash day, okay? And so what we want to do is kind of help out, facilitate that lymphatic movement. So you can think about it in terms of like a river. So what you want to do is kind of like take the skin and, just kind of, massage like this. You want to go from top to bottom. So you want to go like this and follow along the contours of your face and then follow along the contours of your neck. Now, you want to exhibit just light to medium pressure. You don't want to do too much where you're actually hurting yourself. That's not the point of it. The point of it is actually to kind of move and to help that lymphatic drainage, right? So if you're fighting a cold, for example, stimulating this, and stimulating this, release symptoms, okay? Over time, it helps to, clear up congestion. They feel... sometimes patients would report that it opens up everything. They feel a lot less congested, right? And so what we're doing is that, you're helping to facilitate the lymphatic drainage like this. Okay? So you want to do this. This probably takes no more than 3 minutes. All right. So in general, what I want to say is, during the winter time, this is a time that we need to restore, right? It's kind of like you think about like a bear going into hibernation, right? It's to restore, it's to conserve energy. In Chinese medicine, the upper back and the chest are the gateways to the lungs. You want to protect that. So, this may seem obvious, but you want to wear, layers of clothing to be able to protect this. I'm always finding people in terms of, always not wearing enough clothing. I still see people in shorts, during the wintertime, and t-shirts, and sometimes, tank tops. And so during the wintertime, this is where we want to protect the upper chest and the back. The sympathetic nervous system comprises, of your spinal cord. And out of your spinal cord is basically nerves that come out. From T1, thoracic 1 to 4, that's where it is associated with your lungs, okay? The lungs in general need to be moist and lubricated, okay? So if you're in a drier air or drier, space, your lungs are going to work harder, right? And so when they're working harder, then that increases the function and it's taxing it. Right. So if you're able to use a humidifier, if you have a drier air, and how you would know this is like if you're breathing in drier air for very long periods of time, you might get nosebleeds during the winter. And that's very, very common. So you want to do humidifier, right? But super, super, super important that you got to make sure you're cleaning that humidifier very often. Because the water and the moist residue can build up other types of microorganisms that you want. So you got to clean. Other things you want to do is actually perform ventilation. Air ventilation, open up the windows, having fans. So if you're during the holiday season, you're having a lot of visitors over. Always good to have ventilation, fans to move those respiratory, droplets and, viruses, away, right? Having a purifier, right? I counsel my patients this all the time. Having an HVAC system, so if you have central air, right? Having a nice HVAC system is very good for purifying. And then also a HEPA filter. So if you have a portable air filter, that also helps as well. It's better to get a HEPA filter. And if you just type in EPA, the Environmental Protecting Agency, they have a guide for air cleaners in the home. But you can easily purchase these at Walmart, Target, Amazon. And just some general information as well is stress management, right? Again, going back to taxing the immune system, you don't want to overwork. You don't want to go through extreme stress, right? And then physically work. You don't want to overwork as well. In Chinese medicine, we call this taxing the kidneys. Okay, there's a yin and yang in Chinese medicine, and the yang is, actually the vital energy, the physical energy. So, for example, if you're overworking in terms of work, if you are, doing marathons during the wintertime, that's actually not good. You're taxing your system. So depleting your vital energy and taxing your immune system. So what that means is that what that looks like is that actually increases, your ability to get infection because your immune system is weaker. And if you are already sick, then that means that, it would take longer for you to get better. Okay, I tell my patients this all the time. All right, so I hope this was helpful for you guys. During this time, guys, I think it's always best, to have giving the gift of health, right? Holidays, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we always get tangible gifts. Some things that are worth, in my opinion, giving is the gift of health. So at the TheChefDoc, we're doing a 50% drop in terms of coaching. So for example, if you can get 2 sessions for just $250, down from the original $500. So it's kind of like a buy one, get one free. So give the gift of health. So either for yourself or someone else, if you know someone, please let us know. And you want to be able to give the gift of health, okay? And this is only valid in towards January 15th. So my announcements is we're really, really excited to let you guys know for the new year. We understand that health and wellness, when we're embarking on our own health and wellness journeys, sometimes we can be doing this, alone. And I want to say to you that you don't have to do it alone. And we are having great programs for the new year in terms of weight loss, in terms of chronic disease prevention. And we are, putting together really, really great programs to be able to assist you. So a lot of times what we are not succeeding in is having the improper environment, support, and community. If you guys follow the Blue Zones, this is what they have, and this is what they are successful with, right? So, we're actually, already going through weight loss programs right now. For the next year, we're going to restart our weight loss programs, also introducing our new chronic disease prevention programs. And we're doing this for the week of January 15th. So if you or someone are interested in this, please let us know. And you're going to have a lot of support. They're 3-month programs. They're weekly group coach facilitated, and I'll be leading at the helm for this as well. We've also partnered with Let's Get Checked. So, for example, if you don't go to your regular doctor, we've paired pre and post screening of diabetic and heart risk labs before and after chronic disease prevention. And our third program, which is for entrepreneurs, that's also there as well. So, and here are just some of the coaches that are helping lead the programs, and they're very, very high expertise, high experience. Linda and Zainab personally have lost more than 100 pounds each, so they definitely walk, their talk. So again, if you know of anyone, if you guys are interested in weight loss and also want to do better in terms of, if you have a strong family history of chronic disease, these programs are for you. 3 months. Group coach led, and with me leading at the helm. And you're going to have a lot of education and a lot of hand holding, for this. So if you have any questions, I encourage you to I encourage you to email Cecilia at Terra Health Coaching, who is helping us out be able to intake. So we're starting at the week of January 15th, and we're only taking cohorts up to 10. So once these cohorts fill up, then we launch them. So, they fill up really, really fast. And like I said, we're only taking 10 for people that are committed in terms of taking back their health. So please do yourself a favor for the New Year's. Great time to restart. And please email Cecilia at Terra Health Coaching. And I hope this lecture was good for you guys. Hopefully it was helpful, and hope that it provides amazing value for you guys. And I'll see you guys at the next time, next presentation, next video, and have a great, happy holiday season and happy new year. And I'll see you guys